What would happen if everything you've known for, the places, the people, your understanding of this world, turned upside down with a single flick of a lever? Because that is the concept of SEN in Black Souls 2. Major spoiler for the entire game, including all the endings. This is your first and final warning. Chapter 1: The Unpleasant Side of the Mirror. When your SEN had hit 0 and into the negatives, you noticed significant changes to the world. The landscape started to shift as if the world was falling apart. Things you shouldn't see were visible to the naked eye. Silent sounds you never heard prior pierced your frail eardrums. The residents you had long known for shape-shifted into creatures unimaginable to the human mind. What happened to this world? What happened to you? Had you gone completely insane that all reasons and logic defied your newfound perceptions? Perhaps it was just a trickery of the mind, projecting its deepest and darkest secrets. This new perception of the world did not happen in the blink of an eye. It was gradual, a slow yet noticeable change you had long neglected. The effects of SEN reach further than just 0 and 100. At 100 SEN or higher, everything seems normal. You start that way after all. But starting from 70 SEN, the music fades and stops playing, replaced by background noises familiar to that of a horror game. It's eerie and uncomfortable. At 30 SEN or lower, almost every NPC in the game speaks nonsense. Random strings of letters that don't resemble the human tongue. It is impossible to interact with NPC during this stage of SEN. At 0 SEN or lower, the environment around you becomes strange. You can see small bugs crawling on the floor that were previously not there. Sounds of footsteps running under the rain. Cracks in the wall and eyes peeking from them. Bloodstains. Floating hand on the water. More eyes. Broken television. Floating eyeball. And many more peculiar background objects appearing out of nowhere. By the time you reach upon this conclusion, you must have wondered, what is SEN? What does the word even mean? It was none of your fault if the first thing to come to mind is sanity. Inside the game's code, you will not find SEN anywhere, but instead, Sandom. The word itself does not have any meaning, but if you reverse the word, it becomes clear what it meant: madness. The word that is often associated with the work of H.P. Lovecraft, the very idea of the cosmic horror genre. But strangely, it is also a word that appears in Alice's Adventure in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, the second inspiration Black Souls 2 is based on. In Chapter 6, the Cheshire Cat said, "We're all mad here. I'm mad, you're mad." While the following chapter is titled A Mad Tea Party. But that's where things got a little confusing. Simply put, there are two types of madness. Madness itself is a debuff that exists in the game, inflicted by other gods and associated with Jab. The second type is the aforementioned SEN. Wonderland was slowly falling apart, but its creator would not allow you to see its downfall. It knew of your nature. Indulging in coitus and pleasures alike would only stray you further from the truth. But the egg of your dubious mind slowly cracked this fake fabric. The act of murder was one of the many holes overseen by the mastermind. If the goal was seduction and drowning you within the pleasure of copulation, then surely the act of taking one's life was out of the equation. Should you reject the offer of the controlling god, Wonderland would slowly lose its foundation. You can gain SEN by conducting sexual activity and lose SEN by killing. But that's only one of the many ways you can manipulate your SEN meter. Consuming the product of mental ward prescription drugs will increase your SEN by 30 each. Meanwhile, staring at the girl's photo has the opposite effect, minus 10 SEN. Other methods of gaining SEN include interacting with corpses. Searching through them gives you a singleton SEN, and consuming them with the skill taught by Bandersnatch gives you 5. Corpses are also only visible if your SEN is higher than 0. Consuming black souls, which you get from death or by killing others, reduces your SEN by 10. The tainted variant, 30 instead. And consuming Soul of the Outer Ones, exclusive to Chaos Dungeon and DLC 3, increases it by 100. Entering a room with a tall white lady enemy will increase your SEN by 5. But why? They seem to be related to the actors that play the role of Alice. The incestuous one, not the crawling one. Their sprite changes correspond to which Alice you chose at the start of the game. Chapter 2. The Incoherent, the Reminiscent, and the Subservient. The influence of SEN seems to only affect the player, as everyone else's perceptions show no difference despite their new monstrous forms. The phenomenon of zero SEN does not create illusions of madness. Quite the opposite. It allows you to see the world, to see all of Wonderland for what it truly is. This is the true nature of Wonderland. You've been dreaming of sweet dreams all this time. All the heroines you encountered, tried to save, or even exploit to your carnal desires, they're all just a bunch of frauds. Creatures from outside of this world mimicking the speech of a human. To understand the law that transcended species, one must first turn into that species, said a bloodstain located in Little Cemetery, only visible at 0 SEN. It's not that the heroines turn into monsters as you go insane. That's their true form. After cycling into a new game plus and exposing the mastermind, Note mentioned that it was the Crawling One's plan to create offspring of Great Ones through copulation with the player. The player, Grim, as Marius' magnum opus, was able to create offspring of Great Ones that look exactly like them, giving them a cycle of eternal life. Those Great Ones are actually those you refer to as your heroines. They needed a suitable form to seduce you. A monstrous form out of space won't do. So they had taken the role of characters from the children's book, Alice's Adventure in Wonderland, as proposed by the mastermind's invitation to its garden. In Winterbell, you can find a memory of Mabel talking with one of the actors, little sister Alice, further proving that these characters of Alice in Wonderland are fake. They are just the roles they, the Great Ones, chose as. Thus, their forms you see at 0 SEN are the genuine ones. It is interesting that they do not fight back when threatened, yet once you see through their illusion at 0 SEN, they do. One thing I found strange is the Duchess. She isn't afraid to show her true form if you are to anger her, forcing a post-battle. The language that the Great Ones speak is not entirely gibberish. It will take a different video to explain them, so let's keep it brief. If you translate most of them, they act oblivious. Their dialogue doesn't change, but some of them might have noticed. Translating Mock Turtle's dialogue at 30 SEN would result in her crying, but at 0 SEN, she asks, "What's the matter?" A total change in demeanor. It is similar to the case of Griffey. Normally, she tells you to travel the bridge on the left side, but when speaking gibberish, it translates to the right side instead. Another case can be found in Nameless Forest with the deer creature. Speaking normally, it would have some of the words erased, but its gibberish form, which is not possible to see in the game due to a bug, will reveal the erased words when translated. At 70 cent, the deer changes form, and so does its dialogue. The nouns are erased, but translating its 30 cent form will reveal those erased nouns. At the start of Jabberwock's battle, Jabberwock will playfully play out a couple of dialogues, but when she speaks in gibberish, it translates to a single short sentence. Let's play. But the most cryptic difference is Detective Holmes, saying the crawling little girls instead of run over here.
Among the many frauds exposed by the effect of SEN, one genuine figure would emerge from a different world. Her name, Red Hood, a familiar friend who had fought alongside you somewhere in a different space far from this one. You would have a hard time noticing her presence on the first cycle, as the cruel madness within you painted her a beast worthy of your bloodlust. Strangely, the effect of SEN had the opposite effect for her. Perhaps the mastermind in this garden did not approve of her arrival, deeming it a nuisance.
Red Hood is your first hint on unveiling the truth hidden behind the curtain of Wonderland. She is the one of the 3 requirements of getting the game's first true ending. Your first encounter with her must be at the entrance of Ludwig Town, while your SEN is 0 or lower. She will then appear in multiple different areas, and is required to talk to at least 10 times, as part of the 3 keys required to expose the mastermind. The second key is the 6 different memories you can find throughout Wonderland. They all tell the stories between Alice and her mentor, a forbidden, one-sided, unrequited love filled with betrayal, and how the story of Black Sauce came to be as the crawling one approached the now old and wrinkled girl while Mary Sue met the mentor in despair. A diary written by Dean, Alice's father, in Oxford, only visible at 0 cent, tells a disturbing foreshadowing of their forbidden relationship. The third and final key was locked far away outside of Wonderland. Queensland was where Mary Sue, the progenitor, the one that started all of this, was locked up. Her ring, the one that caused misfortune back in her garden, was the final component to find the true ending of the story.
But having all 3 keys simply wasn't enough. You didn't even know where the keyhole was located after all. Walking around, you noticed a snowman in Carroll River with a blood stain telling you to destroy it. Either you obeyed or left the pile of snow alone. You didn't think much of it, let alone try to talk with it. Snowman couldn't talk after all, or so your rational thought believed to be. But it was foolish to think that Wonderland was any more rational than a children's fairy tale. The mastermind did not want you to find out, thus ordering destruction upon the small sign of rebellion.
At 0 cent, the snowman will have a face carved on it and begin to talk. It tells you the step you must take to find the mastermind.
Girl, daughter, sister, mother, is that right? Listen carefully. Do not pick a choice. Enemy.
The snowman tells you to reject the 3 different allies as soon as you move to the next cycle. After fulfilling all the 3 requirements, being Red Hood, the memories, and Leaf's ring, you can press the cancel button, or X, on the version of Alice selection screen. It will reveal the name Alice Detail in red color. That will reveal the mastermind, and all of Wonderland fall into chaos thereafter. SEN no longer has any meaning once Wonderland was unmasked. The heroines no longer hide their identity, and Node will come clean as to what her and the Crawling One's plan are. Chapter 3: Footprints Beneath the Surface.
Fighting alongside Red Hood, you managed to subdue the selfish god, and without its creator, Wonderland collapsed. You soon woke up to what it felt like the real world, far from the fake dream world created by evil gods to contain your soul. What came after was nothing less than a happy ending. The hero and the heroine of the story live happily ever after, much like it was told by the fairy tales that the gods were absorbed by, or so it appeared to be. It was a man's greatest mistake should he think a god of that caliber would be felt so easily. You might have been the greatest creation that an outer god could have created, but what made you think you were on par with an omnipotent god, capable of what was beyond what your feeble mind could even imagine? If there's even a single lesson one could learn from the twisted mind of Mary Sue, good endings were nothing more than a means to an end, a means to an everlasting cycle. After the end credits ended, you will soon realize, once you were entangled by the web of an outer god, it was none of your volition to leave the stage. But now that you knew the truth behind the dream world, you will scour even the slightest of hints to aid your escape from this prison, even if the very idea itself was futile. You approached the first thing you could see as a hint, the librarian's diary, yet there was nothing to read as the black ink obstructed its content, except for one part.
Notes diary is an Easter egg that you can very easily miss. It can only be accessed before Note arrives, and you must be at 0 SEN to see the number. The number itself represents the current cycle you are currently in. By default, before you go into any new game plus, the number will be 65, denoting that since the start of the game, Grimm has already gone through 64 different cycles of repeating the same 7 endings over and over again. But Notes diary is not the only Easter egg you can find on 0 SEN. In Ludwig Town, if you go past the kidnapper, you will find a room with nothing. But in front of the bloodstain that reads Warm, you can find the remnants of Elma, a Black Souls 1 character. Aside from the snowman found in Carroll River, there is also another snowman in Fuming Forest inside of Bandersnatch's lair. It seems nice at first, but when the lever was flicked, a devious smile appeared on his face and sickly, repulsive words came out of its mouth. Beware of friends like this. More snowmen also existed in the basement made by Jabberwock in Carroll River. Looks normal until their masks slip. Each snowman represents a prison for Mary Sue, Red Hood, Alice, and you respectively. But in all recorded history, only yours is used when you lose against Jabberwock in battle. Inside Oxford's library, after defeating the boss of the area, a doll will appear in the center upstairs. Interacting with the doll before clearing ending G will prompt out the text, "There's a doll sitting here." But at 0 SEN, it spewed out Liddell's doll instead, which is the same description as the doll you find inside Mabel's killing device, and a random doll in Mental World for some reason. Talking with the doll after ending G is beaten will reveal that the doll in Oxford was model Alice 02D, while the one you find in Winterbell as Greginol's vessel is Alice 01. Speaking of Oxford, if you interact with the telescope at the back of the building while at 0 SEN and wait for quite a while, you will get teleported to a special area, the moon. Trying to escape the moon by going up will play a strange cutscene with strange music and questionable sound effects if you're playing the game uncensored, all the while your SEN randomly goes up until you eventually get kicked from the moon and return to where you once were. Inside the Ripon Green Cathedral, you will find many different statues. All of them are actually snake statues. They only worship a snake god after all. A hidden door will appear in Rabbit Hole leading you to a room in Mental World. Another hidden door appears at Slaughterhouse near the bonfire leading you to an empty room. Or so it seems at first, because the hidden door is only available once you're 30 SEN or above in the form of a corpse. Yet another hidden door appears inside Frizzle. This time, it's accessible regardless of SEN, but being at 0 SEN makes the entrance obvious. On the elevator between Rabbit Hole and Fuming Forest, you can find an Alice corpse pressing against the wall, and on the Rabbit Hole side of the map, a sign that reads, "For the player's name, there's only Alice," instead of the kind and welcoming text it usually has. On another elevator, specifically from Oxford to Carroll River and not vice versa, the elevator will randomly stop midway. A strange munching noise will play in the background while the screen darkens. In yet another elevator, one that connects between Oyster's Rotted Sea and Ship Graveyard, a walrus statue will spew out words asking mercy for worries instead of the usual statue's description. In Duchess's Mansion, you can find a Cyclops door that will give you a free meat, and a mouth that opens its mouth with touch. And when you check on the painting, it will have scribbles on it with a plain and obvious phrase of, "Where is Alice?" In Mushroom Village, if you knock on one of the doors, you will get no reply. Unless your SEN is 0, then you will hear a jealous woman complaining. I don't know what it references or if it's just a character trope. If any of you watching knows about it, I ask of thee, share us thy wisdom. In front of the old ship's shop, you will find a display of mannequins. They may look static at first, but the influence of SEN reveals hidden messages. It seems they hint you to remember your main goal and avoid getting sidetracked by the many temptations this world provides. In the child's room, when you hit 30 SEN, the 3 colored bears will be in a poor state. Interacting with them no longer shows a description. It shows a message instead. Live, help, kill, and hurts, pain. The color of these bears also matches the color of the 3 fairies you find in Holy Forest from the first game. In 0 SEN, however, they disappear completely, all the while the usual 0 SEN decorations are present. Even if the kingdom of Queensland is outside of Wonderland's territory, it cannot escape the grasp of the Crawling One. Queensland exists within a different garden from Wonderland, formerly known as the Kingdom of Eternal Winter, Winterbell. Despite that, the Crawling One's influence still persists. Dropping to 0 SEN will turn the lucky cat golden, vomiting tenfold the souls. The Madonna in the box on the right side of Queensland will turn red, retelling the death of the first Red Queen, followed by an uncanny, "You killed," and static noise. Is that last phrase referring to you killing the conspiracy or the Red Queen herself? Another Easter egg in Queensland occurs when you try to open the chest where the memory is located while at 0 SEN. You will get the Alice item, followed by a jump scare, a gigantic Alice approaching you. Did any of it ever happen? The Alice item will transform into 4-leaf clover afterwards, the same Blue Duchess would have otherwise. And speaking of jump scare, the fluffy near Duchess Margaret's room will grow an eye underneath, showing an eerie picture of an eye staring at your soul with a loud noise when interacted with. The file name for the picture is called Me. Yet the most ominous Easter egg in all of Wonderland is a shrimp on a plate appearing in Smelter Beast's room. This discovery will alter our perception of the game's lore. In contrast to said Easter eggs, there are events that can only trigger if your SEN is at 100 or higher. Entering Dorothy's room will transport you to a dream, where you get to meet Dorothy again momentarily for the last time. And in Hotel Poseidon, you will trigger your PTSD where you get to meet Dorothy again momentarily for the last time, for real this time. After the event ends, if you spoke to Red Hood, your SEN will drop to 0, otherwise you will gain 100 SEN.
Scattered around Wonderland were signs left by the gods and of those that encountered them. Subtle, malign, and dubious were the signs. Was this a grave oversight of the mastermind, or a twisted way to draw your senses near? But one thing stayed consistent. If the influence of SEN were enough to mask the ugliness of this world, the mastermind would not have the need to erase it entirely.
Subtle hints around Wonderland in the form of bloodstains are easily missable, as they blend perfectly with the crowd of other bloodstains alike, like a raven hiding inside a flock of crows. Unless you double check every bloodstain, it is quite difficult to differentiate between bloodstains that were already there since times immemorial and ones that only appear when Wonderland is deprived of its illusion. If you go to the left of Metalworld's bonfire, bloodstains will appear. One of them reads, "One must not disobey the outer gods," and another one attached to a mirror, SEN. Whoever the writer of it is aware of its existence. A strange bookshelf appears in Dorothy's post-catastrophic household, depicting Dorothy's identity crisis. Are you no longer a man if you're reborn as a woman even if your memory and heart are intact? In Liddell's Mastery, there is a text already mentioned regarding the wicked ways the outer gods mimic the humans. Another text left by presumably the carpenter is located on the bridge where Griffey resides. Inside the castle of Riesel, a signpost will change its content, projecting Lorina's jealousy over her sister, Alice. Another text in a mirror, located in Oxford instead, came to the conclusion that the girl you're seeking all this time was replaced by an otherworldly creature looking exactly like her. But who wrote that one? Is it possible that you from the past cycles was aware of the cycle and tried to remind the future you of his fleeting knowledge? In Slaughterhouse, there's a creepy text located next to a zero-cent enemy with the name of She. A failed product perhaps, or a female so dehumanized it lost its form. The creatures on the move in battle is aggravation and counterattack. Was the text written by the creature or a creep's perception of it? In the Hotel Poseidon from the first game, an infamous place where the death of many characters happened, written on the floor, there was no trick to achieving happiness other than death. At the entrance of Queensland, a text implying not Emprika defeating the Crawling One was written, or at least that had been the plan. A sign in front of the mystery message and added text in zero cent, eager for you to go inside, perhaps because there was something to be found inside. Right before Mary's prison, a bloodstain appears, possibly written by Note, she who jailed the fairy inside. Lastly, at the back of Carroll River, where Jabberwock resides, you will find Alice watching from afar. Attempting to come close will make her disappear, and a bloodstain appear written in the cryptic language. When translated, it says, "Don't cheat on me."
The slaughterhouse, a place where farm animals met their irrefutable ends. This razor-edged device perpetuated the process of turning dirty pigs into delightful meats onto our plates. Strange. How could there be no pork nor bacon found in the vast landscape that is Wonderland? But beyond the curtain of lies, a sinister truth was revealed. This was not a place to harvest the meat of animals, but rather a place to destroy the flesh of human infants. They said that ignorance is bliss, but it had been only a matter of time before one was exposed to the bitter, uncomfortable truth of the world.
The changes you see in the environments are often just generic horror environmental storytelling used to scare you. It has no deeper meaning, or if it had any, it would be vague or of lesser importance to the Garden of Wonderland. But the slaughterhouse is different. There were never any pigs in it, only kids. Wonderland is filled with filthy prostitutes and whores roaming around the street of Ludwig and Upper Ludwig Town, resulting in an overwhelmingly positive birth rate. But those unfortunate newborns are thrown into the cold, unwelcoming streets since, after all, what prostitute is willing to abandon the pleasure of flesh to take care of their unwanted bothersome children? The slaughterhouse was created to give painless ends to those misfortunate babies. Kidnappers roam around Ludwig Town to throw the helpless babies into their inevitable demise early. But that is only half of the story. The slaughterhouse itself isn't enough to combat the unstable birth rate. That is why the rest are sent to the mental world, or vice versa actually. The slaughterhouse was created because the mental world is insufficient. The same premise can be found inside Duchess's room in her mansion. Under 30 cent but not 0 or into the negatives, you can find the Duchess holding a baby instead of a pig, as if the pig making baby crying noises wasn't strange enough. The Duchess eats children, okay, but that's not what my point was. In a way, this is different from the slaughterhouse. It's simply a reference to what happened in Alice's Adventure in Wonderland, the source material of this game.
Chapter 4: Monstrous Forms Hidden in Plain Sight. Among the many places you had visited, there were those who lurked in the darkness in the corners of this world, seeing you went past them as if you were blind. Much like ghastly creatures, those you couldn't see with your eyes did not exist in your mind. These creatures existed within the boundary of your sanity and the world's naked truth. Some existed in place of others. Some existed in place of not.
The mystery of SEN might be abundant and rich in details, but you can't lay too many secrets with no emphasis on fighting in a game where 90% of the gameplay is about slaying eldritch creations. Hitting the 0 SEN mark allows you to meet hidden enemies. The Covenant girls are no longer harmless and will fight back when threatened, except for Duchess. Before you calm her down, she will immediately challenge you to a fight unprompted. Another 0 SEN monstrosity you can fight are Humpty Dumpty, as well as the 3 nightmares, Bandersnatch, Jab Jab, and Jabberwock. Their name changes to Chaos of the Dark Star, Bird of Cosmos, and Abominable Hunter respectively. You can also fight the Serpent God, with a very long neck. One of the more apparent enemies you can find in 0 SEN are the Floating Eyeball and the Red Reaper. Their name translates to Love. We already mentioned this, but when you go to Slaughterhouse, you can find the She enemy, Serpent Spirit in the Cathedral, and Patience in Metal World. If you want to access Bond of Bloody Tears through the alternate path, too bad, you gotta smack a mosquito first. If you want to breach the Red Queen's castle, too bad, you gotta deal with the pieces from the notorious board game Chess. They are a very reliable source of mysterious shards though. The Brown Bear gains sentience if you're at 0 SEN. Once you have talked to Red Hood 10 times, you can fight a secret Beggar Wolf boss in Ludwig Town to unlock a special scene. The Deer in Nameless Forest can be fought if you wish to. Giant House is a 0 SEN exclusive boss. A house located at the top right of Mushroom Village will be removed. The boss's soul can be transposed into one of the most powerful rings in the game. The Queen of Torture Tools has a secret surface when Red Hood is in the party, revealing her true identity, Elizabeth Bathory from Black Souls 1. Defeating her third form will reward you with the sorcery Meteor Shower and her folktale book. Being at 0 SEN unlocks the path for ending E. If you try to kill the allies of your choice, she, or rather they, will break character and reveal their true form. From youngest to oldest, the Black One, Shadow Demoness, and the Elk Goddess. Star Spirit, oddly, will become less visible on 0 SEN. A DLC 3 enemy, Star Pass, will straight up vanish in the presence of reality. What's up with star creatures and their relation to SEN? Are they not inhabitants of this world? On the opposite side of the coin, there are friendly NPCs that vanish as soon as your SEN reaches 0. Most of the NPCs in the bar, any ghost with spectral body, and dream clowns. The name doesn't lie. Fisherman too? Maybe he's a ghost.
Chapter 5: The Entities Who Transcended Madness.
In a world full of madness, there are still those of sound mind. Unlike the many actors who are bound to the rigid rules of this world, there are those with agency that speak in perfect coherence. Rather than actors, they assume the role of conspirators, in favor of and against Wonderland's current master. Then there were those out of this world who came as spirits, and of those who came from the garden that had become the progenitor of many cosmological love stories.
While NPCs generally speak in utter gibberish under 30 SEN, there are some that are unaffected, speaking as if everything is perfectly normal. The first subject that comes to mind is the White Rabbit. Note: she seems unbothered by the changes in your SEN. If anything, she is the one who told you not to believe everyone at face value. Maybe she knows something that her disingenuous self is too afraid to tell. Even her station grows increasingly curious. Everyone who arrives at the library will be free from the shackles of SEN. Every character lost their gibberish dialect and monstrous form so long as they remain within the area. Is it because their true form is unfit for your nefarious needs? Just what dominion does the rabbit have over the Wonderland's creator? She also has the power to exile anyone from the realm. An accomplice of the White Rabbit who succeeded her former throne, Red Idol Cricket, also known as the second generation Red Queen, can also speak normally under 30 Sen. But what's strange is that she has a dialogue change in 0 Sen. When you talk to her for the first time on 0 Sen, it will show Alice Liddell abruptly followed by a static. And instead of telling you she gave you a present next door, she said, "Never, no matter when, do not forget Alice." According to some DLC 3 memories, Cricket was once a part of the Crawling One. What's strange is that she can speak normal human language, even though the Crawling One itself is incapable of it. She certainly understands the language of the Crawling One though, as she is the one to give you the ring that can translate its speeches. At the start of Cricket's fight, she will roll a 5-sided die. The result of the die will determine the stats modifier for her and you. 2 is 2 times, 3 is 3 times, and so on. Under 0 Sen, however, there's a chance for the 6th side to land, changing her face to an empty black color. And instead of Cricket commenting on her rolls, it's a nameless speaker saying, XX can cite scripture for his purpose. Going on a date with Cricket forcefully set your Sen to 100. You have to enjoy the date with her in 100 Sen whether you like it or not. There's also a hidden Easter egg you can stumble to randomly during the date. On a related note, a succubus NPC in Queensland can also talk normally during 0 Sen. It somewhat makes sense. Queensland is outside of Wonderland but not outside of the Crawling One's authority. Hence, Sen still partly affects it. Outside of the two conspirators, there are also spirits, consisting of dream spirits, madness spirits, and nightmare spirits, that are not bound by the influence of Sen. It's hard to tell if they're part of Wonderland. They are neither actors nor inhabitants of this world. Recurring characters from the first game can also talk freely under 0 Sen. They come from a world unfamiliar with the concept of Sen after all. This includes the Black Trial members, Hayne and Miranda, or Meriphilia to be precise, Red Hood, Liv, Victoria, and Elizabeth Bathory. But the most instrumental and bizarre occurrence is this specific NPC in Mental World, talking normally in 0 Sen. Totally an integral part of the lore that is 100% not an oversight.
But the White Rabbit had yet another accomplice. A piece like no others. A piece of its own mind. A piece of mischief and amusement. This feline creature bore the duality of life and death, a role ambiguous even to its righteous owners. Its existence answers the true meaning of duality, the true meaning of Sen.
Let's address the elephant in the room, or cat in this case. The existence of Cheshire Cat has always been an anomaly. She is unlike any other subjects mentioned thus far. The Cheshire Cat is incapable of using the gibberish language. Instead, she looks at you funny when you're at 30 Sen, and strangely disappears under 0 Sen. Her demeanor is also very odd. The only girl that doesn't last for your love. She's there for Alice, not you. She revealed her backstory on Child's Room right before the boss battle with her. But there's a discrepancy here. She said that she was long gone after giving birth, and that was back when Alice was still a little girl. According to the source material, Cheshire Cat is actually the Duchess's pet, which is also true in this game. If you wear Cheshire Cat's ring when you talk to the Duchess, she will notice how familiar the ring's smell is. And again, she claimed that her cat was long gone. But she is also unsure whether she's talking about the same cat. After all, the cat looks different in the painting, looking like a literal Cheshire Cat. And then of course there's the third subject, tearing beast Dina, the beast that separates you from Alice, the fake one. According to the source material, Dina is the name of one of Alice's cat in the sequel. So, which one is which? After beating ending G, you can find Cheshire Cat sitting at the dungeon in Library Dream. There she said, quote, "The Cheshire Cat and not the Cheshire Cat. Dina and not Dina. I'm everywhere and nowhere. The rabbit saved me, so I was just repaying the favor. The role was to be the beast that tears you from the fake Alice. The Cheshire Cat too visited missing time and was made to not exist. Many Cheshire Cats killed Alice's imitations, and some 9 were killed by curiosity too many times to count. Meow. Her words are extremely vague. It's hard to tell whether the many Cheshire Cats refer to many different actors playing the same role or just one Cheshire Cat on many different cycles. But what we know for sure is that Note saved her from something, and in return she was willing to play a role in this stage. There's a chance that Cheshire Cat was never an official role in Wonderland. I have never seen anyone mentioning her existence until DLC 3. Note is certainly aware of her, but the others? Charnarchy interacted with her once, but he's a dream spirit. Is Cheshire Cat also a spirit? She's like a ghost wandering around Wonderland that only you can see. Her not existing in Zero SEN can be seen as indication that her playful, cat-like form is non-existent, only existing within your delusion. That explains how she followed you all the way to the DLC 3 areas. Even if you never met her, you will still inevitably meet her beast-like form before one of the 5 main endings. What I found strange is that outside of Charnarchy, whenever Cheshire Cat is involved with other characters, she's always in her alternate form. And her alternate form isn't an otherworldly Lovecraftian god either, it's a beast. Much like Red Hood's distorted form. Does the Cheshire Cat really exist, or is it just Dina?
Chapter 6. Far away. In time and space. Outside of its dominion.
While most actors remain on the stage, those with no tangible attachments had left long ago. Among them were an outer god older than time itself. Past, present, future are all in the grasp of this god. It knows of time and space hidden from mankind's consciousness. It shared forbidden knowledge that the gods kept in secrecy. But alas, this god had left the stage far before you even had the chance to hear its name. Yet your fate intertwined with it. You trod on a garden long forgotten, met its creator, and broke the endless cycle that had bound you for millennia. Mabel is the name of the key that sets you free from the crawling one's control.
Chaos Dungeon's position is in an odd spot. It's difficult to pinpoint its exact location. Is it in Queensland or Library Dream, or neither? Note appears to not want to be involved with Mabel, so there's no chance that she put the entrance in the dungeon. That must have been Mabel herself that did it. The entrance of Chaos Dungeon is affected by SEN. The grandfather clocks as well as the door to it as reignited before you unlock it won't talk under 30 SEN. And the grandfather clocks turn into holes with eyes peeking through when your SEN is 0. But when you enter Chaos Dungeon itself, the influence of SEN stops playing. It seems that the entrance and the garden itself are in a separate space, hence the influence of SEN affects one but not the other. Mabel herself is unaffected by SEN, using human speech like Note and Cricket. From a memory in Winterbell, Mabel left the stage long ago, not wanting to play the same game as everyone else. She's not interested in understanding human emotions, but that doesn't stop her from being interested in you as an entity. While everyone was busy talking about their love life, Mabel was playing 4D chess. She wanted to change the script and bend it to her own conclusion. That is why she was willing to help. That is why she invited you to an old kingdom lost to time.
But the journey through time was made full of jagged rocks and rough paths. The destination was far in a time the gods forcefully wanted to forget. There was bound to be a distortion somewhere along the way. You arrive in an unfamiliar time and space, unconnected to the ones you had visited, but it was not the one you were invited to, as mentioned by the Chaser Cat.
Crimean nursing graveyard has always been a strange area. It seems irrelevant to the event of this game. While Dr. Florence is a real character that is mentioned at Mental World, the area itself feels like a bonus content. Even if it's not in the game, you're not missing out on anything lore and world building wise. SEN does affect this area like it normally does in Wonderland. The patients, instead of speaking gibberish, are speaking the truth.
Don't, monster, want to become.
The lady with the lamp won't let you out of here. The sackhead lady does speak in gibberish though, the only one apparently. Florence and Dr. Jekyll speak normally since they are spirits. Lingerina also talks normally, but that's because she's a sister of Victoria. You can find sheep floating above some doors. Dr. Jekyll talks about a sheep god. What does that even mean? He used to work in the metal world long ago and knows about Jack the Ripper. What is this place exactly? And what does it have to do with Wonderland? While on Zero SEN, you can read Florence's diary. Her obsession with curing someone eventually results in her development of immortal drug made out of star pass. It strips you out of humanity in exchange for immortal life. It was even mentioned that the twins, referring to the Tweedles, used to be here before they got transferred to Mental World. On the staircase before Florence's room, you can find babies floating around. The birds around Florence won't appear on Zero SEN. And lastly, at the top of the elevator before the fall, you will find cracking walls with eyes peeking through.
As you reach the end of this unfamiliar garden, the course of destiny had corrected itself. You arrive at a place full of never-ending snow. Neither Mabel nor the Cheshire Cat had ever told you what your destination was. But this time, you were certain this is the right place. Nothing about this garden smelled like Wonderland. Even the influence of sand held no dominion. What was left was to follow the script the nihilistic god had prepared for you.
The Snow Country was a place that the Crawling One hadn't taken over yet. It was the garden that the White Queen, now known as the White Rabbit, created. Changing your SEN does absolutely nothing in this garden, besides removing the music from the atmosphere. You can hear a faint sound of gears turning across the world too. No gibberish language is thrown around anywhere. None of the residents of this garden even know of its existence. Even the Cheshire Cat persists under Zero SEN, a feat impossible to achieve in any other areas. You can even find Haiha and Heather in White Castle Town completely unaffected on Zero SEN. This is the past. It was far before the Crawling One found out about this garden, so its influence was nowhere to be found. The only SEN-related event that occurs is inside the Mountain of Madness. The white penguin creatures are usually friendly, they don't attack the player. But if you're at Zero SEN, they will aggressively chase you until a fight starts. The penguin itself is immortal, can't kill it no matter what, and will always escape on turn 2. After you're done with the battle, either by escaping or the penguin escapes, your SEN will immediately be set to 100. Fast forward to the final area of the game, Winterbell, before the Red Queen took over. The timeline you visited happened in between Wonderland's creation and the current event of Black Souls 2. You can find many of your children stationed here. What I find strange is that whether SEN affects them or not is determined by the domain. The same character, if placed outside of Wonderland, whether in Winterbell or Dream Library, will no longer be affected by the influence of SEN. Have they truly lived wholeheartedly as the role they desire? Did they become the role itself? Or is it just the White Queen's authority? It's hard to tell. In Winterbell, you can find memories stuffed in bears. One of them reveals the plan of the White Rabbit and the Red Queen to turn Marisus's ability to change into an artificial god. They used the stage itself as its vessel. It was the last resort they had to overturn the control of the selfish god. Regrettably, the plan backfired. It must be abandoned, it must be destroyed, before the Crawling One holds control of it. The timeline of the events doesn't make sense to me. Gregignol was created after the Red Queen had reformed Winterbell into Queensland, yet you meet Gregignol while Winterbell is still full of snow. Is this version of Winterbell an alternate timeline Mabel created or something? And why does defeating Gregignol allow Grimm to wake up when he had already been trapped inside the dream far before Gregignol was created in the first place? Is it because he obtained Gregignol's soul? It hadn't taken long before the Crawling One noticed your disappearance as it met your gaze through a dream. Luckily, Mabel saved you just in time. Now it's a race against time to take down Gregignol before the omnipotent god catches you. And just before the final ending, right after the death of Gregignol, the Crawling One finally caught up. The only thing left to do was to escape this mad garden once and for all.